Welcome back to Capital Catch-Up. It is Monday, February 23rd, 2026. I'm Victor.
And I'm Lenny. We have a significant slate of legislation to unpack from the last 2 weeks of the 119th Congress, specifically covering the congressional records from February 12th through the 20th.
That's right. We are seeing a distinct trend in this session toward administrative modernization and correcting historical oversights. Let's start with the push to bring the federal government into the modern digital age. We have House Bill 1665, titled the Digital Applications Act.
This is one of those bills that sounds dry but affects anyone who has ever tried to apply for a permit or a job with the government. The acronym usually stands for something like delivering immediate government improvement, but the core function is requiring federal agencies to modernize their online application processes. It pairs interestingly with Senate Bill 3709, the Streamlining Federal Grants Act of 2026.
Exactly. If you look at Senate Bill 3709 alongside Senate Bill 3789, the Prospectus Modernization Act of 2026, you see a concerted effort to cut red tape. The Grants Act is particularly crucial for local governments and nonprofits. Historically, the grant application process has been so labyrinthine that smaller organizations just give up. This legislation aims to simplify that data entry and reporting burden.
It's about accessibility. And speaking of accessibility, we have a piece of legislation that impacts daily life for millions of Americans with medical conditions. House Bill 3299, the Restroom Access Act of 2025, has been introduced.
For listeners unaware, this is often referred to as Alley's Law in various state legislatures. It requires retail establishments to allow individuals with specific medical conditions, like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, to use employee restrooms if public ones aren't available.
It's a matter of basic dignity. While many states have passed versions of this, a federal standard via House Bill 3299 would ensure protections across state lines. On a similar note of social support, we're seeing the Helping Our People Act of 2026 introduced in both chambers, Senate Bill 3769 and House Bill 7269. While the text is still being parsed, the dual introduction suggests a high priority on social safety net enhancements or disaster relief protocols.
Moving to justice and sovereignty, there is a major development for Indian country. We have the Tribal Warrant Fairness Act appearing as both House Bill 7490 and Senate Bill 3041.
This is a massive issue for jurisdictional law enforcement. Historically, tribal warrants have not always been recognized by off-reserve authorities, creating dangerous loopholes where violent offenders can evade justice simply by crossing a boundary line. This act mandates full faith and credit for tribal court warrants.
It builds on the premise of the Violence Against Women Act reauthorizations we saw in previous years, closing those jurisdictional gaps. It's a significant step toward recognizing tribal sovereignty in the justice system.
Shifting gears to our public lands, we have Senate Bill 3785, the North Rim and Kaibab National Forest Restoration Act of 2026. This focuses on the delicate ecosystem around the Grand Canyon. But Victor, what jumped out at me wasn't just the bill, but the nominations coming out of the White House regarding the interior.
It is a changing of the guard. We have Scott Socha nominated to be the director of the National Park Service, replacing Charles Sams III. We also have Kevin Lilly nominated as Assistant Secretary for Fish and Wildlife.
These are critical roles. The director of the National Park Service manages over 85 million acres. With the upcoming semi-quincentennial celebrations, America's 250th birthday later this year, SOJA's confirmation hearings will likely focus on infrastructure readiness at our national parks.
We also need to discuss a bipartisan push to correct a military injustice. We have Senate Bill 3781 and House Bill 3377. Both authorize the president to award the Medal of Honor to James Capers, Jr.
Major Capers is a legend in the Marine Corps recon community. He was the first African-American Marine to receive a battlefield commission as part of Force Recon. These bills waive the statutory time limits for the award. It's a reminder that sometimes bureaucratic clocks shouldn't run out on valor.
Well said. Now, looking at the broader State of the Nation bills, we have the Save America Act, Senate Bill 3752 and House Bill 7296. The title is broad, but bills with this acronym usually target voter eligibility or immigration enforcement. Given the current climate, expect this to be the flashpoint for partisan debate on the floor this week.
And we can't ignore fiscal oversight. Senate Bill 3748 has a very aggressive title, the Terminate Unaccountable Spending, Abuse, Deception, and Fraud Act.
It rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it?
It really does. But it signals that the Senate Finance Committee is looking to claw back unspent funds or tighten auditing requirements. This coincides with House Bill 7307, the Supplies Act, which likely addresses supply chain resilience or strategic stockpiles, essentially ensuring we aren't paying for things we can't get.
Finally, we have a slew of diplomatic and regulatory nominations. Christopher T. Hansen has been renominated for a new term on the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, expiring in 2029.
That provides continuity as we look at new energy grids.
On the diplomatic front, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee will be busy. We have nominees for ambassadors to Iceland, William Long, the Asian Development Bank, Robert Sweeney, and the UN in Geneva, Todd Stegerda. Also, Jeremy Carl and Wesley Brooks are up for Assistant Secretary positions at the State Department.
And a quick note on the Federal Election Commission. Ashley Stowe has been nominated to replace James Traynor. With the midterms not too far off on the horizon, having a fully seated FEC is vital for enforcing campaign finance laws.
Absolutely. Victor, looking at the congressional record from February 20th, Volume 172, Number 34, it seems the Senate is moving quickly to clear these nominations before the spring recess.
So what should our listeners watch for in the coming days?
Keep an eye on the committee schedules for the Tribal Warrant Fairness Act. Since it has identical bills in both the House and Senate, it could move fast. Also watch for the confirmation hearings for Scott Socha. The National Park Service direction is going to be a hot topic.
And I'll be watching the debate on the Save America Act. That is where the political temperature will be highest. That's all for today's Capital Catch-Up.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Thursday.